Good evening, and thank you for joining the City of San Antonio and Bexar County question and answer session regarding the Stay Home, Work Safe order that takes effect midnight tonight, Tuesday, March 24th, 2020. I'm Jeff Coyle. I'm with the city's Government and Public Affairs Department. And very briefly, I'd like to introduce my colleague Sonia Gonzalez from San Antonio Metro Health, who will share how our Spanish speakers can tune in and participate in tonight's event. Sonia?
Hola, buenas tardes. ¿Qué tal? Mi nombre es Sonia González. Estoy con el Departamento de Salud de San Antonio y muchas gracias por estar con nosotros hoy. Para las personas que hablan español, les invito a ver nuestra transmisión de página web sanantonio.com/TDSA. Gracias por estar con nosotros. Si tienen alguna pregunta durante el programa, pueden enviar por correo electrónico al 311 Customer Service a sanantonio.gov. También pueden comentar con sus preguntas aquí en Facebook o por Twitter, @CosaGov.
Okay, Sonia, thank you very much. So we are simultaneously interpreting this in Spanish on our website for those who want to see it in Spanish. As you may know, yesterday, Mayor Ron Nirenberg and Judge Nelson Wolff issued a Stay Home, Work Safe order, which ordered all San Antonians to stay at home except when doing one of 4 allowed activities. Those 4 activities are maintaining the health and safety of yourself, your family, and your pets. Number 2, acquiring necessary supplies such as food, pet food, and household products for your family. The 3rd is exercising outdoors, provided that you keep a 6-foot social distance from other people. And the last is working for businesses and organizations that are allowed to stay open to provide necessary services to the public during this public health crisis. And it's that last one that has generated the most questions today here at the city, and we expected that, so we're holding this session to try to answer as many of those questions as we can. So I'm joined with 3 very smart attorneys. We're going to start with Liz Provencio, who is the first assistant city attorney for the city of San Antonio. Liz, thanks. Joe Gonzalez, who is our district attorney for Bexar County, and Larry Roberson, who is the chief of the civil section of the Bexar County District Attorney's Office. And so for the 3 of you, we've gathered questions all day long through our 311, through our Facebook page, through our partners at the county, through our friends in the media who have been soliciting questions. And we're going to try to rapid fire get through as many of them as we can. We're also collecting them live right now, so if people want to submit questions, they can do so on our Facebook page. We have someone monitoring that, and they can also go to 311customerservice@sanantonio.gov. That's an email, 311customerservice@sanantonio.gov. So let's start with the overarching question that a lot of people are asking, which is, how is this order going to be enforced? If I leave my house, am I going to be stopped by a sheriff's deputy or police officer? Do I need some sort of paperwork with me to be outside of my home? Liz, do you want to start?
Thank you, Jeff. Yes, San Antonio police are not going to pull you over if you're outside of your home. You do not need a permission slip to prove you work for a business that is allowed to remain open. We expect the public to follow the stay-at-home order, and our enforcement efforts, will focus on the businesses that should be closed and that proper social distancing measures are being followed by those that are open.
Mr. District Attorney.
Thank you, Jeff, and first of all, thank you for inviting us to come down here. I do want to say there's been a great amount of cooperation between the city and the county, and you can rely that the county is going to mirror whatever efforts are being done by the city of San Antonio, and we would echo that. We're not going to be looking to enforce violations. Our sheriff's department does a tremendous job. They have their hands full. They don't need to be pulling anybody to determine whether or not they're out and about. We're going to operate under the presumption that you have a legitimate to be out on the street. And so I think that's the message that this is. Look, we're in the middle of a public health emergency. We want to do everything we can to encourage voluntary compliance. So enforcement is not the primary goal, and we're asking everybody to please cooperate and please comply.
Okay, and then I know we just mentioned to Spanish speakers the simulcast going on the website, but because this is such a big question, Liz, if you wouldn't mind answering that one in Spanish as well.
Policía de San Antonio no le detendrá si está fuera de su hogar y no necesita un permiso para demostrar que trabaja para un negocio que tiene permitido permanecer abierto. Esperamos que el público siga la orden de quedarse en casa y nuestros esfuerzos de aplicación de la orden se centrarán en los negocios que deberán cerrarse y para aquellos que están abiertos que siguen las medidas de distanciamiento social adecuadas.
Okay, so the order goes into effect at midnight tonight. A lot of businesses are required to close their operations. They're allowed to have employees working from home and upkeep their building and their IT system, but by and large, they're required to close. Now, there's a list of exceptions to that. And so that's what we want to go through now. So a lot of people have asked the what about me questions, what about my place of employment and so forth. So let's just start down the list. The first one was adult daycares. Larry?
I think adult daycares are allowed. Right now, I think the focus is on large groups of people, things that are aggregators rather than the smaller. And by the way, things that are necessary to support your household or necessary to live your life are probably going to be exempt. And that's the one point I want to really make, is that we're applying the county, and I'm working with the city, but we have really been trying to approach this from a common sense, reasonable perspective. Things that make sense are allowed. Things that are not necessary for your daily life, like, for example, I think one is maybe hair salons. You can postpone those things. Our goal is to keep people safe and do it in a reasonable way.
We've had a lot of calls about call centers. So one in particular was a call center for a financial service company. Allowed.
Yes, sir.
So we'll stay open. All call centers? Will all call centers stay open?
Yes.
Okay. There's a exemption for healthcare providers, but somebody asked specifically about chiropractors.
Yes.
Chiropractors can stay open.
Permitted.
Okay.
And Jeff, if I may qualify on the call centers, what's critical about anything that we in this call session respond to, it's incumbent for any exempted business to maintain social distancing measures. So the answer about call centers is provided that they are maintaining the adequate social distancing protocol, yes.
Yeah, okay. Great. Thank you for saying that. So really, any of the businesses that we're noting here are allowed to be open, that are exceptions to the order, have to have those protocols in place, meaning keeping people 6 feet apart, cleaning surfaces regularly,
correct,
hand washing, all those things. Okay. Churches, places of worship.
I think the presumption there is that we want people to worship online, either through video conferencing or teleconferencing. And if I might just mention, Jeff, I mentioned earlier about the sheriff's office. We have some 30 or so municipalities outside of the city of San Antonio. Certainly all of them are cooperating with us. So whether you're Balcones Heights or Somerset or one of the other smaller municipalities, they're all working to do the same thing and try and reduce the spread of the virus.
That's important. So the city of San Antonio's order is for San Antonio, but because Bexar County's basically mirrors it, it means all the other cities within the county are covered as well.
Jeff,
okay. Yes.
One point on that with, and this I have to give credit to the city attorney and the city attorney's office. The goal was to be consistent, and we sat down and we worked on that for several hours so that there would not be a difference or a major difference or noticeable difference between San Antonio, the city, and Bexar County, the county.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, Larry. So churches, places of worship, do it online, not in person. Babysitting businesses, home-based babysitting
It's
services.
allowed.
Is
It's
allowed,
allowed,
remains
yes,
open. Bike shops and bike repair, do they fall under the transportation exemption?
Yes, they do.
Okay, so if you need your bike fixed to get around town, that's a business that can stay open.
One of the things that we're looking at is what are you trying to accomplish? If you're out there because you're trying to exercise, you're trying to engage in some kind of recreational activities, then we will look at those businesses that support that. If you've got a flat, then you've got to get the flat fixed before you can ride your bike. So that's how we're liberally construing these exemptions.
Okay, great. What about a photography business? Is that a necessary service during this time right now?
So Jeff, that goes to the exemptions for if you can conduct your business entirely at home and it's a home-based business and you can maintain the proper social distancing, then it's going to be permitted.
Okay, and if you can't, it isn't.
Correct.
Okay. Anything you want to add, Larry or Joe?
I think it's pretty consistent on the county side.
Okay. We mentioned pets twice as being part of the 4 allowed activities, taking care of your pets or getting pet food. So the question then begs, what about pet-related businesses, boarding or pet, daycare facilities, that sort of thing?
So I think one of the key exceptions in this order are the residential sort of category, and that includes not only the residents, but all of those services that support the residents, that support having, some homeowners have pets, that's lawn care, that's all of the things that keep a home safe, or all of the things that the businesses surrounding keeping that residential establishment safe, or orderly.
Yeah. Well, speaking of keeping residents, your home orderly, the next question is about home repair services like plumbers, electricians.
Generally, those are allowed.
Those businesses can continue to operate. Okay. House painting, I would assume, falls under that as well?
Correct.
I think anything that falls under the repair or maintenance of a resident
Yes.
or a business is going to be permitted.
Okay. So there are a number of exemptions for transportation companies, so taxis and Uber and Lyft and so forth. There was a question about car rentals. Can car rental businesses stay open?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Anything related to transportation and the movement of people, whether that's by bicycle, rental car, right now, we're not trying to, our default is to keep those businesses operating that support a community.
Excellent. Thank you, Larry. Law offices.
So that's kind of a multiple part
I just realized I'm asking that question of 3 attorneys here, but yes, law offices. Sorry, Liz.
The kind of 3-part response to that, Jeff, is 1, if you can entirely operate your office from home, you're going to be allowed to do so, irrespective of what that practice entails. So first and foremost, allowed to maintain your office from home. Secondly, if you look under the professional services, you are completely permitted to comply with all legal mandates, right? So whether that be deadlines, obligations to clients regarded to deadlines, requirements that you have in order to meet your obligations to your clients, that is going to be permissible, irrespective of whether that's outside your home. Now, if it's outside your home, it must include the social distancing requirements. And then there's a third category, which is all of those legal service providers that support exempted businesses are going to be allowed to do so. So if you look at our categories in the order that kind of specifically draw out some of those activities, and then you cross-reference the CISA guidelines, which is also included, which has the 16 different critical infrastructure areas, and your law practice supports any one of those, including vulnerable individuals, it's going to be permitted.
Okay. Same approach for the county, I assume?
It is, and the problem is that this is such a wide spectrum because you have, as I did when I was in private practice, a 2 or 3 man operation to now the biggest law firm in the county that we run, and so you have different needs depending on the size of the law firm, the law office. But I think we're going to, again, construe that liberally. We're also going to be working hand in hand, as we've done, with the courts, with the judges specifically, to see how many hearings, how many non-essential items we can take off the table, right? So that these lawyers can stay at home or stay back in their office to avoid the person-to-person contact. We've had a huge amount of cooperation from the court system and the probation office and everybody involved in not only the criminal but the civil courts. And there's also a lot that lawyers can do to work to avoid person-to-person contact. There's video conferencing, there's teleconferencing, there's texting. So again, there are many things that they can do to avoid the interaction, and that's what we're encouraging.
Okay, great. We mentioned a second ago that rideshare companies like Uber and Lyft and others are exempted under the transportation category, meaning they can continue to operate. What about Uber Eats, food delivery services?
I think that would be allowed, and frankly, I think probably anything that is a mechanism to deliver food during the time of crisis is always going to be a business that would remain open. I think food is such a key part of this that anything we can do to facilitate either the delivery or the operation of those types of businesses, we would definitely allow. That may take some care of some of these, but especially that.
So does food extend to, say, a snow cone or ice cream truck or a snack trailer or something to that effect?
Well, I would say it does for the most part, because I think getting into sometimes that may not be fit technically within the category, but I think this is more of an intent-based order, and we're not really getting into the tiny details like that. Food is food, and I think that's kind of the overarching goal.
Great.
I don't think anybody's going to be splitting hairs because you got a snow cone instead of a bean and cheese taco.
Right, right. You're not going to get into the types of food. It's a food business. Right. Okay. What about a realtor who wants to show properties to a client? Is that allowed right now under this order?
Short answer is yes, Jeff. I mean, we are, again, it's the example you gave is yes, with the expectation the realtor is working out of home and is, has the ability to maintain the proper social distancing when showing a home. We want the continuation of our housing supply to be available, and that would be in furtherance of that.
Okay. Farmers markets certainly serve food, that sort of thing.
Yes,
Farmers markets, okay?
Yes, yeah, definitely, but keep in mind, overarching all of this, social distancing, regardless of the exemption, social distancing.
Right.
And the more mitigating measures you can incorporate into whatever business, the better. But that's one of the key, and Liz mentioned this earlier, applies to every exempt business regardless. But anything related to food for the most part.
Okay. We talked about home maintenance businesses earlier. What about landscaping, a sprinkler company or a landscape material business?
I think those are going to be allowed as well because, again, they fall under their category of maintaining your residence.
Okay. What about a car wash?
Yes, it is for both vehicle maintenance and vehicle safety.
Okay. I think one of you mentioned this earlier, but hair salons. Are they exempted or not exempted?
Not exempted.
Not exempted, meaning they must close now.
Somebody joked earlier that while you can't get a haircut, your dog can. And so that's the difference is we're trying to keep, again, that person-to-person contact.
Right.
You cut someone's hair, you're going to have to use your hands to get into the person's hair. And so that's what we're trying to avoid here. So unfortunately, hair salons are going to be prohibited.
And I would think also in that category then are nail salons, foot spas, massage spas, that sort of thing, correct?
Yes,
are all required to be closed.
And
Okay.
Jeff, here's the reality is the leaders of this community had to sit down and strike a balance between what they considered public safety and maintaining some degree of economic reality. And within that, some businesses are going to fall into that. I think the categories are pretty broad. And frankly, I think that the city did a good job and the county did when they met of trying to figure some of these things out. I mean, rest assured that from my experience, you really have some very intelligent attorneys and people who are dedicated, and they put a lot of thought into these categories. So at the end of the day, it will be a balance. People may disagree, but sometimes you just have to make the decision to move on.
Okay, hardware stores, are they considered part of the home maintenance?
They are.
Yeah, so they're allowed to remain open.
Correct.
Private recycling services,
Allowable.
allowable. Smoke shops,
Not-
vaping, smoke shop, that sort of thing.
Not allowable.
Meaning they need to close midnight tonight.
And I would further say that this would be a good time to reconsider whether or not you want to engage in anything that's going to compromise your lungs. Because we know that that's an area that this virus attacks, maybe you put off your interest in vaping until we see ourselves through this. I think that's certainly worth looking into to try and do everything you can to keep your health up.
But I just want to add, that's not the rationale for the closure. It's because it doesn't isn't considered a necessary service during the time.
It's
correct?
more on the health side. It's more commercial about trying to stay healthy, and
Yep.
there's
Okay.
certainly that could do it.
All right, thank you. Moving companies,
Permissible,
permissible, part of transportation.
correct.
Okay.
And household. keeping up
Tow
household.
trucks, I would imagine the same.
Permissible, yes.
Golf courses, can golf courses continue to stay open?
Yes, with proper social distancing.
Because generally they're outside,
And generally are going to be in excess of the 6 feet.
keeping
Yes.
social distancing. Okay?
So Jeff, another category that people talk about is sports and contact sports, playing flag football, playing basketball at the local park versus playing golf. Again, we're talking about social distances. When you think about a pickup game, you think about someone guarding somebody else, and the smacking of skin to skin, that's what we're trying to avoid. And that's why we say maybe we discourage that kind of activity.
Right, right. The exercise outdoors is allowed, is one of the allowed activities for leaving the home, but not being part of 10 people running around on a field together. Yeah, got it. Pet grooming, I think we touched on. Aircraft manufacturers.
That is allowed. That's specifically within the order, section 4. It is one of those industries, aircraft manufacturing, maintenance, or repair.
Okay. Just got a question from someone on Facebook. What about bookstores?
So the short answer is, for purposes of pickup and those types of services, if they can do it in a way where it is online order, telephone order, and then you pick it up, it will be permitted. But we do not want, if you're purely a bookstore, we don't want in-store
retail
shopping.
store,
We don't
right.
want the retail store open, correct?
Understood. Homeowners associations. Somebody asked specifically about homeowners association meetings, which I would assume no, but do homeowners association businesses stay open?
I think the short answer is they're permitted to do that, provided they do it within their home. Obviously, there may be needs that the homeowners association need to facilitate for purposes of their membership, but it needs to be with the proper social distancing and not in open meeting spaces of big gatherings.
Right. It brings a question for me, which is we've talked a lot about when people can work from home, it's okay. Is it permissible for someone to leave their home to go to the office to pick up whatever materials or supplies or what have you to be able to
Yes.
work from
Yes.
home?
Yes.
Okay, so they can make that trip. And I'll actually pause right there to answer the question you did at the beginning, but I think it's critical for anybody who's just tuned in. In terms of enforcement, people leaving their homes are not going to be stopped by police officers or deputies. There's no document to prove that you can leave. We're asking the public to follow the stay-home order, and the enforcement will focus on the businesses and organizations that should close pursuant to the order. Correct?
Correct, and to maintain proper social distancing for those that remain open.
Okay, great. What about FedEx, couriers, delivery services?
Allowed.
Allowed? Tire shops and mechanics?
Allowed.
Housekeeping and office cleaning?
Allowed.
Allowed. We've already touched on construction businesses are allowed to remain open. Liquor stores
Allowed.
Allowed.
fall under the food category loosely. Car dealerships?
That is allowed, and that's part of the transportation. We don't want to in any way restrict a person's ability to secure transportation, whatever that may be, through cabs, cars, or any other way.
What about a flower shop?
To the extent that they serve an essential business, they can, but no retail activity.
So similar to the bookstore concept, I guess.
Correct.
That you don't want the
And
retail.
again, what if they're supplying flowers to a funeral, to someone that is having a funeral? I mean, obviously,
That's an
part of the
essential service, right?
service to
And I was going to
provide.
ask that next. So funeral businesses allowed to remain open with proper social distancing. We touched on realtors, other real estate transaction-related companies like appraisers, those who do inspections, surveys, that sort of thing.
I think the short answer is it's going to depend. I mean, to the extent that they support a construction activity or a specific transaction that is permitted, the short answer is going to be yes. But they do need to take a close look at what are the permitted activities so that they can ensure that they are falling in support of one of those.
Right. And I realize we're asking every what-if scenario that we've gotten today, so I realize there's not, this is a challenge to address every possible scenario, but you all have made the point on several occasions that the idea is to allow those businesses that need to provide services to the public to continue and close the ones that don't during this time. So we talked about retail stores like bookstores. What about malls, flea markets?
That's going to fall into the category of most likely closed. Obviously, if you do have a store within that provides a particular type of necessary good, then if they'll be allowed. If you look at where we enumerate stores and retail, if they have pickup options, those types, obviously if they're sort of a mixed goods store and provide food and household necessities, then they can be open like a grocery store would. So it will be a business by business evaluation, but for the most part, your malls are going to be closed.
And
Okay.
Jeff, this might be a good place to interject that if you are listening to us, the overriding theme is to allow it rather than not. What we're really worried about is the social gathering, the bars that are spilling over with people, the people that are so close to proximity that again they're rubbing skin to skin. We want to avoid that. We want to continue the social distancing. We want to discourage those sorts of social gatherings. Do what you got to do to go to work, to get your groceries, conduct business, but try and stay home when you can.
Excellent point. And I think we should probably mention, because this order did not change anything around restaurants, but we should restate that restaurants are not to have in-restaurant dining right now. They can do drive-through, takeout, delivery, but not have customers in, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Larry, someone asked on Twitter if they can go running,
Yes.
outdoor exercise. Here's a general question. What is the difference between stay home, work safe, and shelter in place, which is a buzzword that a lot of people have been using the last week or so?
I'll sort of give you my perspective. Based on the various orders that have been issued by states and cities across the country, they're substantially similar. And so when you hear shelter in place, it is substantially similar to our stay home, work safe. And you will find the same categories of businesses and activities exempted. You will see references to the CISA guidelines, which we have referenced for essential infrastructure or critical infrastructure that the federal government has identified. So for purposes of talking about both of them, they're substantially the same.
Okay, excellent. Person asks if they can just drive around without going anywhere to get out of the house and keep from going stir crazy.
Yes.
That's
I'm going to
allowed.
say
Probably want to discourage it, but allowed, right?
Here's the thing. If you need to get out of your house for your mental health, do so. Take a walk. If you drive down the street, we're looking at places really focusing on large aggregators of people first. No one's going to stop you to determine if you have a legitimate purpose. I think most law enforcement agencies are going to presume that you have a legitimate purpose, that you're doing something that benefits you or your household, if that's your mental health. And by the way, to a good point that Liz just brought up is the CISA, the critical infrastructure that we have included in this substantially expands. And anybody who has a doubt should go read that as well as the orders, because that really adds some context to what we're trying to do here.
Excellent. Let me pause there to say that the orders themselves are on the city and the county's websites. You can go to sanantonio.gov, and is it bear.gov? Bear.org, excuse me, to read the orders themselves. This person just asked us on social media where they can get more information about coronavirus, about COVID-19, and similarly, the city and the county have a lot of information right there on the homepage. In fact, we're directing most people to go to the web page for information and or call the city's hotline, which is 207-5779, or simply 311 at the city to get questions answered. So we're about 30 minutes in. Can we keep going? We've got them coming. Okay. Can I still, I think this is directed to the county specifically, may I still go update my car title and vehicle registration at the county offices?
I think that the county assessor's office is making some changes even as we speak, but I believe that they're going to continue to operate. What they're doing is limiting the access in the lobby, but I believe they still have services available. I would encourage whoever needs to do that to call first, and I think they'll find that they're still open, but there would be some limited access. Okay.
Larry, what if someone lives in a hotel?
Hotels, I think, are considered part of the residential, if I'm not mistaken. It's just part of the many ways that people need to find shelter. So it's definitely allowed.
And I'll take this opportunity to ask another couple of questions we've gotten related to evictions, because I know the county's taken action around evictions during this time. So this person asked, living in a hotel, is it exempt for non-evictions?
Okay, so hotels are a complicated legal question. Hotels generally are not property interests, it's more of a license. Those aren't really subject to eviction laws. You're not a renter, you're just a
guest.
Guest.
Right. Okay.
Correct.
So a similar question was that, and maybe you can explain this after I ask it, but evictions are halted for now, but I've lost my job. What happens after the order is lifted? Will there be help for those of us, I guess, who are out of home?
Okay, so, and I just want to freely admit that I don't have all the answers. I mean, I want to remind people that we are in truly unprecedented times. The law has existed for many, many years. There's a process for evictions. It's an orderly process. It's paused right now, but once we get through this, the process will continue. That means that you're entitled to notice. You're entitled to all the requirements that the law imposes on landlords, and those will simply resume. We have really just paused until we figured it out. And so while I can't answer all of those questions, what's going to happen after those
Sure.
processes start again? For right now, we know that there's a pause and that all of the requirements that the law imposes on landlords will be the same when we start.
When we're behind this after
Yes.
this. So when you say
yes.
paused, you mean the county has essentially in its order, in one of its prior orders, said that people may not be evicted. Landlords may not evict people for 30 days, I believe. Is
Yes,
that correct?
and that's carried forward in this order. And I believe the justices of the peace in Bexar County have also issued their own orders, as well as many of the courts. The Supreme Court has issued an order, the Court of Criminal Appeals. There are many court orders that sort of put a pause on all the legal processes, for the most part,
Great.
that are non-essential.
Thank you for explaining that. Liz, here's a very specific one from a company that is a language service provider, does interpretation translation for hospital networks, urgent care, 911 services. Are they exempted from the order?
Yes, they are.
Because they're serving
They are
healthcare
serving
related.
the healthcare industry, yes.
Right, and by exempted, I mean they're allowed to continue operating.
Correct.
Can I move to a new home or apartment and hire a moving company? We already addressed moving companies, but can I move from a new home or apartment and transfer items from a storage unit to my new home or apartment?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Can people still travel to see family?
I think it depends. Obviously, supporting a family member, helping supply them with whatever provisions they need during this time, being social, emotional support for them. The short answer is yes. I think we need to also read the orders with the spirit with which they're intended and understand that, to the extent that you can sort of, refrain from activities that aren't to provide that necessary support, we would hope that maybe you give it a little time before that.
Right.
And especially with our elderly and the folks that may be most vulnerable. But by all means, short answer is yes for support of family and the critical needs or social, emotional, mental health support that they may need.
Yeah, I should mention, just 1 second, Joe. The 4 categories of allowed activities to leave the home, one of them is caring for family members, and it specifically says even if, or that includes a family member in another household. So if you're going to take care of an elderly mother or what have you, that's absolutely permitted.
And this is the part that's going to be unpopular with some of our viewers. We obviously want our viewers to support their family members, especially the elderly, the people that are ill. What we're going to try and discourage is celebrations. What we're going to try and discourage is the big barbecues in the backyard, the quinceañeras, the birthday celebrations that we've been looking forward to. Those have to be put off, unfortunately. Otherwise, we're never going to flatten the curve.
That makes sense. Can people travel in and out of the city right now with this order in place?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yes. Okay. Here's a very specific question. Stores that specialize in African American hair care, may they stay open?
I think the short answer is it depends. If it's providing hair care service so that they're actually performing the service, that's going to be the same answer as hair salons, which is no. However, if it's a supply store that, again, can provide the supplies or the hair directly by way of, telephone and pickup service or online service, that will be permitted.
Okay. There's a little bit of confusion around pet stores and pet products. One person asked if only big box stores are allowed to sell pet food and products. Can smaller individual pet stores stay open?
Yes.
Yes, but keep in mind, social distancing and pickup and curbside type rules apply as well to some of those.
Mm-hmm. But the idea is that pet is a member of the family and caring for them is allowed.
That's part of the household.
Okay. I'll answer this one. Who do we notify if a business isn't following the order and is requiring staff to come in when they should be closed? The simple answer is that the police department's non-emergency line will take those calls. It's 207-SAPD, 207-SAPD. I don't know if there's one you want to share from the county side.
I don't have that number with me.
Okay. I think that's the safest place, though. And most, if not all, of the follow-ups that our police department, our code officers have done since receiving complaints have resulted in a business owner cooperating, working with the order, maybe not being aware entirely of what it said. So
one of the things we want to say is don't call 911.
Do not call
turn your neighbor in.
Right.
That's not what that's for.
Great point. Non-emergency line, 207-SAPD. Is driving to a golf course outside of town, like say Comfort or Fredericksburg, is that permitted?
Yes.
Okay. Yes was the answer. What other resources I'm assuming this is around COVID-19, what COVID resources are available for those who don't have internet access? It's a very good question. We at Metro Health created a hotline for people to call. So while we're encouraging a lot of people to go to the city's website because there's a lot of information there, we know not everybody has access, particularly right now. So that hotline is 207-5779. You see it on the screen. It's open 7 days a week. The hours are there on the screen, 8 to 7 Monday through Friday and 8:30 to 4:30 on Saturday, Sunday. If you write it down and lose it or forget the 207-5779, you can always call 311 and they will route you to the COVID hotline. Okay, Mr. District Attorney, can people in Bexar County still go fishing?
Yes, they can. For various reasons. It's recreational activity, and hopefully if you're good at it, you can bring some fish home and feed your family, but of course you can.
Okay, great. What about apartment complex staff? Do leasing offices need to stay open or can they close?
I think the short answer is it's up to the leasing office how they intend to operate, but they're not required to close. Mm-hmm. And for purposes of being able to conduct their business and provide these as options as residents is, yes, they're permitted to continue working, and they must maintain proper social distancing measures.
Excellent. A number of people have asked about child custody issues. Maybe this is a question for the county. So can someone leave the house to, say, travel to the airport or travel to another house to pick up a child as part of a custody agreement?
Yes, and I'm sorry, Joe.
No, go ahead.
And I would say if you're under a court order, then you are subject to that order and you should follow it, absent some other further guidance like custody orders. That's definitely allowed.
Okay. Someone from Twitter just asked about elective or cosmetic medical procedures. Can providers perform those right now?
I think that those are specifically prohibited in the governor's order as well as this order. Or if not specifically addressed, at least the county order incorporates the governor's restrictions, and those were in there, if I'm not mistaken.
To avoid non-critical procedures,
Correct.
elective procedures.
That's correct.
Okay. Someone asked about the punishment. There are fines for not following the order. How do those come into play if police officers are not going to be pulling people over and asking for proof that they are allowed to be out of the home? Then when would a fine come into play, Liz?
Well, ultimately, is if there's we need to cite, right? So a fine potentially could be imposed if someone does not voluntarily come into compliance, then a fine may be imposed.
Remember, we're in uncharted territory. I think law enforcement is going to give people the benefit of the doubt. They're going to try and allow people to correct their mistakes. I can see a business owner, a restaurant owner, a bar owner, if he or she continues to violate this executive order, they may be subject to fine. Of course, worst case scenario that someone is incarcerated. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants to feel, at a time when we're trying to reduce the jail population to reduce the spread of this virus, we don't need to fill our jails with people that are not complying with our orders. So we're going to give people a chance to correct their behavior. But again, it's all about trying to gain voluntary compliance.
Okay. Does this order apply to state or federal employees?
No. There's a government services exemption. I mean, that pretty much covers all government entities.
And I would assume under government, although it also falls under the critical infrastructure category, but military would fall under that as well.
Absolutely.
Military absolutely will continue.
Correct.
Okay. This individual owns a water well drilling business and has employees both here and in other cities that work together. Is that type of business allowed to stay open?
Yes, it is. It supports the water supply.
Great. Child care business is closed for children, but is continuing to have staff come in and maintain the facility. Is that allowed?
I believe it is specifically accepted within the order, but if not, it's supporting people who have to go to work for the accepted businesses or exempted businesses.
Child care services in general. So even if a child care facility wanted to continue having children in, that would be okay.
Yes.
But certainly if they made the decision not to do that, but to have some of the staff come in, that's allowed.
Correct.
And it is specifically within the order. I just double checked.
Okay, great. Thank you, Larry.
You're welcome.
Can people still congregate at city and county parks to play basketball, tennis, and other sports?
Again, common sense and exercise and practice social distancing. If we use the example of basketball, avoid a situation where you have to come upon someone to guard them. If you can, it's going to sound silly, but if you can play horse, if you can shoot baskets at a distance without having to have that person-to-person contact, that would be one way to engage in that sport.
Okay, here's a question that just came in. When does the order expire?
Right now, the county's order expires, it's April 9th at 11:59 p.m.
Okay.
Likewise, the cities, and that is subject to council approval and council will be addressing that on Thursday.
Right, so the city council meets Thursday and will decide whether to extend it to April 9th.
Correct.
And then it would be both consistent city and county.
Correct.
Okay. I don't know that you can answer this question yet, but I'll try with the county folks. What about property taxes? Is the county tax assessor or collector going to collect on the same timeline, or will there be a change to that?
No, I know that we actually can't answer that. I believe there's been some steps and some contact with the state, but at this point, we don't know the answer to that.
It's not a decision held at the local level. It's a statewide
There are some
structure.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Here's a wide open one for you guys. What kinds of things are closed? Why don't we talk about what businesses are not exempted here as a general idea? You want to give a few?
We talked a lot, generally it's going to be personal care businesses, the types of hair salons, nail salons, all of that requires the close interaction and personal care service. Obviously, a large group of businesses are required to only operate either at home or by way of online and pickup services. So, we do have a fair amount that will have to restrict their business for a while.
And it's going to be the retail stores, the specialty clothing stores, the things that you can do without for a couple of months. Those are what we're trying to discourage people from utilizing.
And I think that's a fair extension to remind people that this is we're talking a lot about the business side of this, the work safe part, but it's a stay home work safe. The general idea here is for residents to stay home as much as possible. Don't leave except for the necessary reasons, because we're trying to prevent the spread of the virus. And if we all keep to ourselves for a little bit and for a little while, it'll hopefully make things move faster and we come out of this on the other end. What about AT&T, Spectrum, like telecom and cable technicians? Can they still come to homes?
Yes, that is allowable.
Because the telecommunications services are provided are important,
Correct.
Internet service
Right.
for connection.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Engineering and architecture firms, are they considered exempted from this?
I would say yes. Those are presuming social distancing, but those are some of the organizations that would support the construction of residential homes, which specifically is mentioned in the order. I think that's what we had thought going into this, is that it's not only the specifically mentioned, but those supporting industries and businesses as well.
And I would say a fair amount of them would support the various 16 different categories that the CISA memo identifies as critical infrastructure as well.
Right. This individual asked what city and county services are still running. I'll let you answer the county one, but as a general rule, a lot of the basic services to the community that the city provides continue. So trash collection, fire and police protection, our development services. We've extended some deadlines to allow for there to continue to be a process, but there is still construction and development occurring. Certainly our 311 folks are answering phone calls. For example, libraries have closed, and yet a lot of librarians are working on our hotline and answering calls from residents. So we, like businesses, are trying to focus on those necessary services that the public needs right now, and focusing all of our efforts on there. Do you want to add to that from the county side?
Well, the governmental function is one of those specifically enumerated exceptions. So the government continues to operate, as you mentioned before. The tax collection, the tax assessor's office is still up and running. The county clerk's office is open, the district clerk's office. We are in constant communication with all of those department heads and very selected officials. They're doing everything they can to keep this county running while trying to keep us as safe as possible.
Someone asked about bulk pickup, so that's not just a daily or weekly trash pickup, but bulk items, whether that's still continuing. It is. The city's still offering bulk trash pickup. Pool supplies, are they considered essential as part of the home? How does that work?
So I assume, we're not going to have all the answers, but I think that pool supplies, cleaning your pool is part of that residential exception, maintaining your home, and all of the items necessary to maintain your home, whether if you have a pool, it still has to be the chemicals and cleaning, so I would say yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Person on Facebook just asked about, can I foster a pet The short answer is yes. In fact, our animal care shelter is another one of those critical services that continues, and this is a time when they really need people to foster animals and help find long-term homes for them. So thank you for that from Facebook. Also from Facebook, laundromats
Yes.
are allowed to continue as a basic service.
Yes.
I'll ask this question, even though we've already answered it, it once again is critical to mention. Am I required to carry a permit or a letter of exemption to be able to go to work?
No.
Why not?
Basically, the short answer is that it's not necessary. That's why we're explaining what the exemptions are. You can see that that they are very liberal. There's a laundry list of places you can go to and from work. And so nobody should feel that they can't go to work. Nobody should feel that they're going to be pulled over unless they have a permission slip from their employer.
Excellent. Okay. Medical billing,
Permissible.
permissible. That's critical. Property managers.
Permissible.
Okay. Haven for Hope, the facility for the homeless, is certainly open. Yep. Someone asked about going and visiting. I frequently go to my daughters for dinner. Am I allowed to continue to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we want to encourage family members having interaction so long as they keep it small. I mean, going to see a family member, even a small family, it's the big barbecues, it's the big birthday celebrations we're trying to discourage. That would be my answer to that. Liz, what do you think about that?
I agree. And the short answer is, with the single households and the family, coming over for dinner, that's going to be permissible. We do not want to encourage the large gatherings, however, and that is not permissible.
Right, and we're talking about an order that has specific rules and exemptions. Nobody's going to be cracking down on someone going and visiting their daughter. At the same time, we want to convey the message that if you don't need to leave, if it's a social gathering, and if we want to keep apart from each other and try not to spread the virus, then you might think twice about that. But it's not the kind of thing that is going to be enforceable by the order.
Correct.
Fair?
Fair.
Here's an important one. Parents in a nursing home. Can I go visit parents in a nursing home? That was addressed specifically in the order, wasn't it?
And the governor's as well, Governor Greg Abbott's order as well. Those are vulnerable populations, so keep that in mind. When you leave your home, then you're taking a risk to yourself, but also the people downstream that you come into contact with. So the nursing homes are definitely out.
Yeah, if you don't have to visit, don't run the risk of bringing something in.
Correct.
Can I still provide Airbnb service in my home? Can I still rent out a back house or a room?
Well, I mean, I would say yes. I mean, I would say that you're providing a service. And again, as long as you're practicing social distancing, I don't see a problem with that.
Yeah, hotels are permitted, so this falls under that same category. Physical, speech, and occupational therapy clinics.
That's permissible.
Healthcare, medical
Correct.
provision. Yep. How about soliciting door-to-door for sales business?
I can't think of an exemption that would fall into.
No, especially with the risk gets great. There's all the person-to-person contact with that type of door-to-door sales. I would think that I would err on the side of saying no.
Okay. The cities and counties park trail system.
Open.
Open. We'll stay open. Just again, don't go with big groups. Stay 6 feet away. The airport.
Open.
Yep. Specific exemption for that. Somebody else asked about moving, which we already answered. That's allowed. Worship facilities, again, use live streaming or teleconferencing, not in person.
Correct. It's prohibited unless it's done remotely or by web or teleconference or some other remote measures.
Okay. This person said they live in Bexar County but work outside the county. So how does this apply to them?
That's, when they're in the county, they follow the rules of the county. If they're in another county, then they follow those rules.
If they live in Bexar County, they're considered a Bexar County resident, and they're subject to this executive order.
Right. Someone asked us to describe what social distancing means, which I think is a great question.
Well, this is a good example here.
That's right.
Right.
Here we are 6 feet or more apart.
Right. Staying 6 feet or more apart, not being part of large crowds and gatherings, washing your hands often, not touching your face as much as possible, and cleaning surfaces that you use regularly are all good social distancing. Which is a good extension here. Someone asked about, when we go outside, should we wear masks?
I mean, I don't think it's necessary that you wear a mask unless unless you're already ill or unless you're trying to, you know that you're going to be in an environment that you may bring home that could possibly expose someone else. Masks right now are on back order. I mean, we have limited medical supplies.
Right.
So by you using a mask, you're keeping somebody that really needs it from having it.
I've heard our Metro Health folks say that masks protect a healthy person from someone who's sick, meaning the sick person wears a mask, not the other way around. When you think about it, you wear a mask, your eyes are still not covered, so you're not fully protecting yourself from potentially getting something. So you save the masks for those who need it.
And also, I would just point out that, some of those critical medical supplies should be preserved for the healthcare providers and the first frontline responders. I know there's a great need for that, so the more that we could keep that with the people who are facing this risk every day, the better.
Right. We have about 5 minutes, so why don't we do 3 more questions from Facebook. Should people avoid grocery shopping in large groups?
Yes, is the short answer. I mean, we want our grocery shopping to be, based on what we need, and we want to do it in a way that maintains the social distancing. And so the ordinary rules that we recommend are going to be consistent for how you conduct your grocery shopping.
Mm-hmm. I would say people should avoid shopping in large quantities because what's happening is some people are hoarding and that causes a sense of panic. Why does that person have 20 packs of chicken? Do I need to get 20 packs of chicken? You've had grocery chains like H-E-B tell us all the time they're not running out of food. They continue to stock their stores. So let's be sensible about what we buy and how much of it we buy.
Okay, this one I'll answer quickly. The question was, how long are schools closed? That's not governed by this order. It's not a city or county decision. It's a school district decision. But many of the public school districts did announce today that they plan to stay closed through April 24th. And then finally, last one is there a curfew in place under this order?
This is technically not a curfew. You think of a curfew as somebody being home, and if you're not in home and you're on the street, then the officer is going to pull you over to determine why you have violated a curfew. We're not there yet. Hopefully we'll never have to get there. But this is, again, encouraging people to be smart, to stay home, and work safely. And I want to take this time, since we're running out of time, Jeff, to give a plug to law enforcement. They're doing an incredible job out there to try to keep everybody safe. And so we need to all support what they're doing out there.
Okay, I said that was the last one, but 3 quick ones just to make sure we don't leave them hanging. Dog walking, absolutely allowed. AA meetings, substance recovery, absolutely.
Allowed.
Dental offices allowed to stay open.
Yes, and now they do have to comply with the governor's order with regard to, elective procedures being postponed, but yes, they're permitted.
Great. Well, we tried to answer as many as we can. I'm sure there are more, and we'll direct people again to the order on the website at sanantonio.gov and bearcounty.org. But I want to thank you guys for joining us. First, Assistant City Attorney Liz Provencio, Civil Section Chief from the DA's office, Larry Roberson, and our Bexar County District Attorney, Joe Gonzalez. Thank you guys for answering the questions. If you have other questions related to COVID-19, you can call our hotline at 210-207-5779, 207-5779, or you can call 311 and they will route you. And we also encourage you to visit our city's website, sanantonio.gov, for all of the latest information. We're putting up a daily update, if not more, on the website. That stay home, work safe order, again, is on the website. And we also have a new screening service on the site that helps people determine whether or not it's a good idea for them to go see a doctor about possible symptoms and therefore potentially testing. And finally, I'll plug that we have a texting service. If you've not taken advantage of this yet, if you text 55000, if you go to 55000 and text in COSA.gov, type in COSA.gov, you will get automatic texts when there are updates on this issue. And we think that's a great way for people to make sure they're getting the latest information. So thank you again for joining us. We hope we answered your questions. And we just want to remind everyone to stay home, work safe, and we'll all get through this together. Thank you so much.
Thank you.